In this discussion, we're going to look at political parties in the United States of America. We're going to look kind of at their origins and the history of political parties in our system. So I'm going to start first, before we get into our topics, by just alluding to the fact that the goal of a political party is to elect people to win elections and control the government. Now, it's a contrast to the goal of an interest group that we just studied, and the goal of an interest group being to influence government policy. Remember that a party wants to become the government. They want to control the government. Now, parties are not mentioned anywhere in our Constitution, but they were definitely thought about during the founding era. If we look at Federalist 10 and the warning that Madison put forth, he said, factions are natural, factions are inevitable, and what you need to do in creating a government is set up institutions that protect against the effects of factions. So the founders were very aware of parties and their potential for being a dangerous part of our political system. With that being said, parties do serve a certain necessity in our government. When you look at how our system is set up, there's divided government, there's separation of powers, and parties provide a unifying aspect that brings interests together, brings diverse interests together so that we can get things done. It'd be very difficult to run the House of Representatives if it was 435 unaffiliated, unconnected individual members. That party label helps to unify and get some things done. When we look through the history of our political parties, we can identify 6 clear party eras. The founding era of political parties in our system is the Federalists versus the Jeffersonian Democratic Republicans. And this is our founding. This is when things were starting to shake out, and the main debate was big government at the central federal level versus states' rights. When we get to Jacksonian Democrats versus Whigs, this is where we really start to see the two-party era emerge. And the Jacksonian era is categorized and characterized by the mass public support. We really started to get mass participation in politics, and Jackson tried to rule as a president of the people. We saw movement away from control by the parties and into the hands of the masses. Now, the next 3 eras that I want to talk about are the 3 clearest examples we have in our nation's history of party realignment, when the coalitions supporting the political parties made a long-term lasting shift. We start with 1860 to 1892, which was an era of Republican dominance. So 1860 marks that transitional realignment period where the nation, under the guidance of the Republican Party, giving them credit for unifying the Union and winning the Civil War, bringing our nation together, they get the credit, they dominate for the next 30 years. Now there's a realignment that occurs in 1896, and that ushers in the second era of Republican dominance. And this is one where the coalition supporting the Republicans change, and that's why we call it a realignment. In this era, big business and the working classes both sided with the Republican Party against the Democratic rural interests that were represented. Now, this era of Republican dominance ends in 1932 with the realignment of our electorate to the Democratic Party. And this is under FDR's Grand Coalition, which was made up of urban dwellers, labor union members, Catholics, Jews, the poor, Southerners, African Americans, and farmers. And this coalition really set up the foundation of the Democratic Party into the modern era. Now, from 1968 to present, we see the era of divided government. And you really look back to 1968 and the victory by Richard Nixon. Nixon won with a Southern strategy, using the animosity in the South towards the Democrats and the Civil Rights Movement to peel away at the former strong point of the Democratic coalition. So this era of divided government kind of starts with Nixon's Southern strategy, and it's characterized by one party controlling the chamber of Congress and the other party controlling the presidency. Now, Reagan's a key point in this era of divided government because we see that Reagan built a coalition of disenchanted white suburban middle-class voters, Southern white Protestants, your labor force, especially in construction and manufacturing, and big business members. And to this day, we still have divided government. If you look at parties today in our government, we have a Democratic president, we have a Democratic Senate, and a Republican-controlled House. And we will see how that all plays out as we continue our study of political parties and the American political system.